That is what we love to see. How's it going, Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of? It's your guy, Wardy, and we're back at it with our latest New York Metropolitan post-game segment as we're going to break down the masterclass outing that was Luis Severino going a complete game shutout performance. Who had that on their bingo card to kick off this Saturday? I know I didn't. I don't know about you guys watching live on a replay, but that is what we're going to break down in tonight's post-game show presented by America's #1 sportsbook, BetUS. Make sure to check them out by clicking that link down below in the description. All my live viewers on YouTube. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. And this was a masterful outing by Luis Severino. Sevy, who I've been telling each and every one of you plenty here lately, I need to see the Severino that we saw pre-trade deadline. Post-trade deadline, Sevy, we got ourselves a 3-inning outing, a 5-inning outing, a 5-inning outing. I want to see Sevy go back to being that starter that goes deep into ball games, 6-7 strong every single time out there. And Luis Severino casually gives the Mets his best start of the season, a complete game shutout. Spam those W's in the live show to all my live viewers. If you're watching this on replay on YouTube, spam them in the comments down below as we live react together and break down everything that transpired in this Metropolitan Series victory as they take down the Miami Marlins by a final score 4-0. In tonight's show, we're not only going to break down everything that you need to know on Luis Severino going a complete game shutout, 9 innings, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 8 Ks, sub-4 ERA on the year for the veteran right-hander. His first not no-hitter, but his first complete game shutout that we have seen since his amazing 2018 season back with the Yankees at the time. On the offensive end, we're going to break down what we love so much by Mr. Smile in the leadoff spot yet again. Marky V continues to thrive there in the 3-hole. We see Pete Alonso continuing to add with the home run production. We also see some other key pieces in Jesse Winker standing out once again. Plenty positives get into on all fronts of this matchup, but everybody first chiming in live and on replay, thank you all so much for being in here. If you're watching this on Twitter, make sure that like, that follow button, that retweet button. But no, as always, I'll only be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on audio, make sure you leave a 5-star review if you found yourself enjoying as we cover the Mets every single night here. The Mets #1 post-game show, not directly affiliated with the Mets themselves, here on YouTube, Twitter, X, and wherever you get your audio podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Google, Apple, you name it. Look up WardyNYM. You're going to find your boy, and that way you can check out and listen to all your favorite WardyNYM content from all your audio platform needs, preferences. Doesn't matter to me, folks. That way you can, again, ingest my type of content any way you want to, and that way we can break it all down together. So to my audio listeners that are listening to this after it's been live on YouTube, happy to have you here as well as we're all reacting live together and are going to break down this victorious matchup for the Mets. Doesn't count, it's the Marlins. Miss me with that nonsense because this is the same Marlins team that has an act for literally kicking the teeth in on the Philadelphia Phillies and have for the past couple years. So miss me with the nonsense that, oh, it's a lesser team, it means nothing. No, we have to appreciate this because this is the same Severino that has also gone rock this year against lesser teams. I mean, maybe not as bad as the Marlins, but the point is that, again, anything can happen for these starters. Just because they've been consistent doesn't mean that they still won't have a bad outing every now and then, even against lesser clubs. We cannot emphasize enough the brilliance that was Luis Severino going 9 strong innings in this matchup, and I cannot wait to break it down with each and every one of you. But before I do, you guys know the drill as always. Let's let it rip with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. Shout out to my guys Greg and Jordan, the creators of the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. Play that ear sound. You know the drill, D. How you doing? I know we got people in the chat saying 2-1 in the Hawk Tua era. And again, we're above 500. I'll take it. I will gladly take it, and that's all I'll say about that right now. How's it going, everybody? We're going to live react and break down together a Metropolitan victory. One of their bigger series victories as of late for a Mets team that entered this matchup here against the Miami Marlins, dropping 6 6 of their past 10 games, losing 2 out of 3 against the Oakland A's to kick off their 10-game homestand. Now the Mets again look to hopefully have themselves a 9-game homestand route, 9 or 10, one of the two, as they will have a huge series after tomorrow's series finale against Miami as they take on the big bad Baltimore Orioles, who I absolutely love and I'm definitely not going to love in that 3-game set against the Mets. But guys, let's see the initial reactions together. That is what I want to know. Here I thought I missed the saw. No, you didn't miss it, Sean. Don't worry, we're going to have it rolling as we always do. Diamondbacks lost today, which we absolutely love, because as we take a quick peek at the wildcard standings right now for the New York Metropolitans, they are just a half game out now of the 3rd wild card. Yes, folks, if you asked Mets fans 24 to 48 hours ago, they would have told you their season had already ended, no matter the fact that the Mets are still well within reach of the 3rd wild card spot. And I'm all understanding with doom and gloom among Mets fans that goes together like cheese and wine, but I also understand that we have a lot more baseball to be had, and while the Mets don't have a favorable schedule for the remainder of the month and do have a lot of key tough matchups in the month of September, the season is not over yet. They're continuing to claw away and secure victories as the Mets now stand 5 games above 500, and should somehow, some way, the Atlanta Braves drop their 2nd game here against the Halos tonight, the way that they did yesterday, even with Chris Sale on the bump, which again, I do not foresee to happen. But if it does happen, then just like that, the Mets are tied with the Atlanta Braves for that 3rd wildcard spot. So at absolute worst, the Mets are still a game out after tonight's conclusion, and that is not a bad situation to be in if you are the Mets, given all that you went through as of late post-trade deadline. Not playing your best baseball, thankfully, looks like it isn't going to hurt the Mets too much, at least to this point. We'll see what happens, folks, as we get into more of this. Let's see. Sucks to be you if you missed this game. It really does, and this was one of those games that was so fantastic. And you want to know what stood out so much to me, guys, before we rapid fire break down this one inning by inning? We'll get into the offensive standouts, but I really want to put a point of emphasis not only on Luis Severino's brilliant outing, but what helped the brilliant outing? This was a tremendous job by the Mets outfield and Harrison Bader, Brandon Nimmo making beautiful diving plays. Mets infield there that we have seen with Lindor, with McNeil, turning huge, sharp double plays, which we love as well. Then we see Mark Vientos having some heroics there at the 3rd base position, driving in on bunt singles, getting the runners out there at first. I am loving this defense that we saw from the Mets today, and that's who deserves a huge tip of the cap for what they did for Luis Severino, helping keep him stay afloat in this ballgame. For Sevy, who did exactly what David Stearns was preaching yesterday, needs to end, and that is to make sure that we're not walking guys anymore. The Mets only walked 2 batters yesterday. First was the first batter Sean Manaea saw. The second was one of the final batters Jose Butto saw in the 9th inning. Today, we fast forward to Luis Severino over 9 shutout innings, allows just 1 measly walk. This is a recipe to success for this Mets team, getting late from their pitching and ultimately not walking everyone their mother the way that they have all season long, which is why they've led all the National League to this point and walked for 9 innings. Chris Scotty with the $2 haul. Thank you so much for that, Chris. I greatly appreciate that. Chris, who was in attendance of today's game, he was literally front row. I'm not even joking. I'll show you guys right now a photo that Chris sent me. Chris is a great friend of mine. And here we have Chris, actually, as you can see, front row there with Harrison Bader in front of him with his pink crayon bat. I know it's probably not going to focus the way that I want to. That's perfectly fine. But shout out to you, Chris. Happy to have you in here. And now, folks, let's break down this ball game. I want to talk about Luis Severino the entire time, if you couldn't tell. We're also going to get into, after this, any key updates that we have on the prospect end, Starling Marte, but I'll just tell you now with Starling Marte, as we broke down our video earlier today to check out, in case you haven't already, folks, on Brett Beatty, David Stearns, Nunez, Senga, and Marte. For Starling, he is expected to return to the Mets as soon as tomorrow, if not, then early next week, beginning the Orioles series. Starling Marte, who hasn't played with the Mets since really the final week or so there of June, I believe June 22nd, don't quote me on that, however, has finally ramped himself back, looking healthy, fresh with the legs, playing outfield defense, even if it isn't great. He's commanding right field fine at the AAA level right now. He's putting the ball in play, he's driving and runs, and he's playing the way that Starling Marte has played for the Mets all season long. A great contact hitter, a subpar defender, which I think is an understatement at times, but one that can come in and again be a lightning rod to an already very deep Mets lineup when guys are firing on all full cylinders. Even in a 4-0 victory, there were some key takeaways on the offensive end that I too am excited to get into in said matchup. But shout out to Keto Rising, great member, Steve Steve, great member. Chris, great member. Guardian of Chaos moderator, how you doing? Everybody in the chat right now, thank you all so much. Cherno, great member. Going up the list here as well. I'm sure Rebecca's in here. Dave Kaplowitz, my man, how are you? Great member. Christian Scott Lover, how are you? He said, Gary said something along the lines of the Mets only used 2 pitchers yesterday. And I said, in an ideal world, we would only use 1 at the beginning of the game. And that's exactly what happened. Isn't that crazy, Christian Scott Lover in the chat? It is absolutely bananas that the Mets only utilized 3 pitchers over their past 2 games. Frank Major, how are you? Daniel, how are you? D in the chat. James Carroll, great member. Steven, great member. Appreciate you guys each for chiming in live on a replay. And again, if you guys are watching this on replay, do not hesitate from letting us know your initial reactions in the comments down below. Because the only reason why I'm not going to burst your eardrums the entire time today is because, one, I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. It's just great to see the Mets winning. But man, oh man, did Luis Severino deserve this one. This was a bulldog outing that he was sharp with from start to finish. D-Mac with the $5 haul says, I guess we don't have to worry about Sevy being tired. Nope. Nope. And that's the big thing with Severino this season. What has been a big standout for him? It's been his ability to get good sleep at night. Severino famously said that over the past couple years with the Yankees, a reason for his lack of success and lack of proper health went directly in hand with his lack of sleep. Now Severino having a proper sleep regimen for the first time in years, kind of similar to Dominic Smith when he had the sleep issue in years past with the Mets as well. Now he's being a clutch hitter that we've seen at times with Boston Red Sox this year. Shout out to you, Dom. We love ourselves some Dom bombs here. But Severino with a fantastic outing that I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get into this one and let's break down how good he was and how the Mets secured the series victory here. Because, folks, we had Severino on the bump of this match. I'm already halfway to 100 likes. Thank you all so much to my live viewers on YouTube. Continue to smash those buttons, and thank you all so much in advance for doing so. But this game kicked off with Luis Severino matching up here against Meyer there for the Marlins. And this just felt like a game where, even a Saturday day game where the Mets have been horrendous all season long, statistically on Saturday day games, and the City Connect jerseys especially, it has been their kryptonite. Thankfully, it wasn't their kryptonite tonight, and all I can say is, and I know he might be watching this, Anthony from Subway to Shape Podcast, I love you, Ant. I was texting Ant earlier today, and I was like, you go to the game today? He's like, no, I'm actually going tomorrow because he hasn't had good luck with the Saturday games this year, and I don't blame him because Saturday games have been a recipe for disaster for the Mets. Lo and behold, the one day that he decides not to go on the Saturday, you get a complete game shutty from Severino. Why? Because baseball, and because baseball gods are never in line with Mets fans at times, it feels like. But we love you, Ant, and I hope you get to see a series sweep tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, everybody, final thing that we're going to rapid fire break down this ball game. You guys can check me out with Dexter Henry as I will be doing a segment after the conclusion of that series against the Miami Marlins, and after our post-game segment tomorrow, we'll be out sometime tomorrow evening after we've already done our usual content here on the WardyNYM platform. So that'll be on SNY, New York Post socials, along with their YouTube channels. It'll be on the New York Post Sports YouTube channel, and it may be on the SNY channel itself. I'm not entirely sure. It depends on what they decide to post there versus just posting on the other channel. But, all right, guys, let's break this one down, as this was a quick start for the Mets. Luis Severino comes in, and he works a 1-2-3 with a strikeout. He strikes out Jesus Sanchez, who, as I mentioned yesterday, leads the Marlins in payroll right now at $2.1 million. Yeah, he's getting a bag, and I obviously a bag in comparison to what I and probably you are making right now, but it's not a bag in comparison to just any other team in Major League Baseball when evaluating salaries. Camp, thank you so much for the membership. I greatly appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed, my friend. Happy to have you in here. As always, thank you so much for joining the WardyNYM YouTube membership community. And again, happy to have you as always. We see then in the bottom of the first, it's early offense for one of the best shortstops in Major League Baseball, Mr. Smile himself, the one of the best, if not the best leadoff hitter in the game since being shifted in that spot there that we saw in May. Francisco Lindor rips a leadoff no-doubt home run, his 24th homer of the year, already 70-plus RBIs on the season. He's going to have another 30-plus stolen bag season. Francisco Lindor, for all the doubters, for all the haters of the first month of the season, like you typical schmucks do, I'm here to tell you, he's here, he's a real deal. Appreciate him while he lasts in his peak prime right now, because we are getting quite literally a human highlight reel of a player on an everyday basis. And the people that say, oh, Francisco Lindor doesn't step up, he has continuously been one of the more clutch hitters for the Mets this season, especially since batting leadoff, which again, we've now come to realize that is where he should have been all those years ago. But again, it's never late. It's always better late than never in the case of having success with Francisco Lindor. Lindor and the Mets here. And as long as Brandon Nimmo can get in the groove out of the leadoff spot at some point, the Mets are going to have recipe for success, not only for 2024, but for 2025 and for years to come with a similar batting order. Lindor with his 24th home run of the year gives the Mets a 1-0 lead. Marky V, we then see rip a single there to left field. Nothing else transpires in the inning as JD grounds into a double play, but the Mets are still up early 1-0 in said matchup. As we get to the top of the second, we only see a walk for Kyle Stowers. The lone walk that is thrown and unfortunately dealt by Luis Severino today, but thankfully that wouldn't hurt him. The way that Meyer would be hurt by one of the best home run hitters in Major League Baseball, who finally looks like he's now finding more consistency over this post-All-Star break, post-trade deadline. Pete Alonso rips a 27th home run of the year. That gives the Mets a 2-0 lead, and that was the Polar Bears' 100th home run at Citi Field. Just to share some context, guys, of where Pete Alonso now stands all-time among Mets home run leaders, he currently sits fourth, only trailing Darryl Strawberry at 252, David White at 242, David Wright, my goodness, my God, my gracious, I cannot believe I butchered the captain's name. That's how you know it's a little bit of a mess on my end right now. David Wright, 242, Mike Piazza, we love him, 220, and Pete Alonso at 219. So what you're saying is, as long as Pete Alonso is a Met next season, he will become the Mets' all-time home run leaders, and that is when he's just about to be 30. Absolutely insane. Pete Alonso, what he has done throughout his career, putting him for the record books in Mets history as one of the best sluggers, if not the best slugger that we have now seen in franchise history. Already 100 home runs at Citi Field. It feels like yesterday, folks, I saw Pete Alonso's first home run at Citi Field with my very eyes in a back and forth, a wild matchup, a victory there that I believe was back in March of 2019 against the Nationals. Robinson Cano and Michael Conforto hit back-to-back home runs. JD Davis hit 2 home runs in the game as well. I'm trying to think on who was on the bump there for the Mets in that matchup, but I think Strauss was on the bump for the Nats. I could be wrong. Crazy how that was the year the Nationals won the World Series somehow. But yeah, I digress. Let's get back into breaking down this ball game. Pete Alonso with a fantastic home run there to give the Mets a 2-0 lead. And if you're first chiming in live at a replay, folks, let us know your initial reactions down below in the comments as the Mets took down the Marlins thanks to Luis Severino's masterclass 9 shutty inning outie, a complete game shutout where the Mets found themselves victorious for a series victory by a final score of 4-0. As we continue to break down the ball game here, nothing else transpires in that inning. As we get to the top of the third, Vidal Brujan gets on with a single. Then we see a throwing error by Severino on a pickoff attempt, allows the runner to move, but then thankfully Xavier Edwards grounds into a double play, and that does it for the inning. That was a beautiful double play turn by the Mets infield there that I have showcased in the highlights for each and every one of you watching live segment on YouTube right now. And then as we get to the bottom of the third, Brandon Nimmo gets a taste of that Francisco Lindor hitting. No, not on the home run scale, even though he had himself a 3-run shot just a day ago, but rather the triples. We saw Lindor have his first triple of the year driving in a run yesterday in the Mets' victory in Game 1 other matchup against Miami. Nimmo, who broke out on the scene in the 3-hole yesterday, coming back from the stomach virus with a 3-run shot of his own, a towering shot, a no-doubt shot there, hooking right. We see Brandon Nimmo rip a RBI triple to give the Mets here a 2-0 lead. If I did not mention that already, Mets had a 1-0 lead there entering the inning. Brandon Nimmo with his 3rd triple of the season gives them, again, a 2-0 lead in this matchup, which is what we love to see. As I continue breaking this down, everybody, give me 1 second as I want to make sure I don't have anything messed up here. JD Martinez then gets on with a walk, and Pete Alonso strikes out to end the, Pete Alonso doesn't strike out to end the inning. Why am I getting tongue-tied here? Jesse Winker, as I mentioned, who has been swinging the bat pretty well for the Mets with the runners in scoring position, comes in 2 outs and drives in the Mets' 3rd run of the day with an RBI single himself. Winker already has the Mets celly going with, I honestly am going to say it, I think it's a slap-ass notion. I think it's something along those lines. You know, parental advisory here, folks. I don't know what it is. All I know is I love it. It reminds me quite a bit of the Key and Peele skit, if you know, you know. And the Mets take a 3-0 lead there as we then head to the top of the 4th. Then at the top of the 4th, Jake Berger, who has been one of the best power hitters in the National League for the past month plus now, rips his 14th double of the season, and thankfully nothing else transpires. Sevy strands the runner there at second base. He strikes out Jesus Sanchez and then gets a couple quick outs there on Jonah Bride and Derek Hill. As we then get to the bottom of the 4th inning, Lindor gets on with a walk, and Marky V, Swaggy V, in the rain, drives him in with his 18th double of the season. Mark Vientos, who flashed the leather today, looking brilliant at the high corner, even with the weather not on his side in this one, showcasing the bat-to-ball skills that has carried the way for him all season long yet again here. 4-0 Mets lead, and that is what they would ultimately win by. Otto Lopez then with his 10th double of the season. Nothing else transpires there in the top of the 5th. In the bottom of the 5th, Mets get nothing there. A 1-2-3 for Sevy in the 6th. Mets do nothing that we see in the bottom of the 6th. You have McNeil and Lindor get on. McNeil gets on with a walk. Lindor, I believe, got on with a single, but nothing else transpired because Vientos did strike out Sweeney to end the inning that time. At the 7th, another brilliant 1-2-3 inning of work there for Luis Severino, headlined by a brilliant inning-ending catch by Mr. Brandon Nimmo to rob the newly acquired former Baltimore Oriole turned Miami Marlin Kyle Stowers that ends the inning unscathed. As we then head to the bottom of the 3rd, the Mets go down in order there. Then in the top of the 8th here, we see Tyrone Taylor comes in as a defensive replacement then for Jesse Winker, and he'll be batting 6th for the remainder of the ball game. Nick Fortes, who has had a flair for the dramatic, sadly against the Mets, not only this season, but in years past, rips his 10th double this season, the backstop. Thankfully, though, a ground out for Xavier Edwards ends the inning unscathed for Luis Severino. Sevy is through 8 strong innings and looking to do more. We see Severino come out for the 9th, and then the 9th, the leadoff batter there, the one guy that you probably don't want to pitch to, and Jake Berger gets hit by the pitch. Sadly, he gets a little injured there, but he would stay in the game. Then we see Severino get a talking with Mr. Carlos Mendoza after the hit by pitch. Mendoza post-game said it himself, I needed Sevy to look me in the eyes. I told him to look me in the eyes and basically tell me that you're comfortable, that you got this. Sevy said, yep, don't worry, I'm good, I got this. He kept him in the ball game, and Severino, what does he do? He strikes out Jesus Sanchez again. He gets a pop out on Jonah Bryan, and he strikes out Derek Hill. He's juiced up, the aura is flowing, the roars are out, and the Mets win this one by a final score of 4-0. Luis Severino's best start of the season, 9 innings of 4 hits, 0 earned run, 1 walk, 8 strikeout ball, at 3.91 ERA on the season for Mr. Severino. My question to each and every one of you guys watching or listening to this right now is the following. Sevy, what are you going to give him on a 1-10 scale of an outing? The fact that Sevy went 9 shutty, that is going to be a 9.5 out of 10 for me. The only reason why I'm not going 10 is because Sevy didn't give us a no-no. 10 goes to no-nos. 9.5s goes to the complete game shutouts, especially when you don't even walk literally anyone. He walked 1 batter in this matchup. Luis Severino, thank you so much for your service. You worked that fastball brilliantly. And as we take a little bit more of a deep dive on Severino, a couple key notes here to make note of. This was Severino, mind you, who had 142.2 innings, is now at a season best that we have seen from Severino, bulk of innings-wise since the 2018 season. Coincidentally enough, the last time that Sevy threw a complete game shutout, the last time that Sevy had any type of dominant S-type season during his time with the New York Yankees. Severino, who the Mets banked on that 1-year, $10+ million deal entering the season, a lot of people doubted. Severino has been sharp. He has been more consistent than any Mets starter this season. He has consistently gone deep for them outside of his past couple outings post-trade deadline, which is what makes this, again, a complete game shutout masterclass all that much more impressive. Shout out Luis Severino, who threw 113 pitches, again, for the first time since 2018. And on top of it all, the little cherry on top, his hardest pitch thrown tonight was roughly 99 miles per hour, 98.6 to be exact, on his 104th pitch. He wanted that complete game shutty as bad as anyone who hasn't had one since the 2018 season. Who, just for some context, that was a while ago. We're talking about back when we were in 2018. Doesn't feel like it was all that long ago, but that was at least 6-7 years ago, right? So Sevy, frothing out the mouth, wanting a complete game shutout. Mendoza, Mets manager, who has a great feel for the game at times, trusts his starter, and it works out brilliantly. Sign me the heck up, baby. That is exactly why Sevy gets a 9.5 out of 10 for me. And I don't fault anyone that wants to go 10. The only reason why I'm not is because my personal scale, 10 goes to specifically no-hitters. That is just, it's hard to best a no-hitter, honestly, unless you do a no-no, but you do it in a really impressive way where you work a lot of quick innings, where you throw less than 100 pitches, then that's maybe even 11 out of 10. I digress, everybody. Let's continue to break down this ball game as we're going to go through the arsenal of what Luis Severino provided today. What stood out so much about that? We're going to get into a bit more on the hitting, then we'll wrap things up with the latest updates in Mets land, if anything, on the prospect reports, and ultimately my key final takeaways from this 4-0 victory, a victorious series victory for the Mets. But before we get into it all, let's hear a quick word from today's video sponsor that you all know quite well by now at Yes, BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Shout out to BetUS once more, everybody. I hope you hammer the Mets series money line in this one because BetUS came out with a tremendous promo that we promoted yesterday on socials for you all, which was Mets to win the series outright was minus 280 odds. The Marlins were at plus 2 something. I hammered the Mets at minus 280. That is now already hit there, which we love to see. If you hammered Mets money line or spread today, you came out victorious as well. So congratulations to all my respective sports bettors that checked out BetUS by clicking that link down below in the description of the live show. That way you too get a 125% bonus on not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits for all your sports betting needs up to $2,000. And if you guys are into UFC, then I highly implore you all to hammer tonight the big card that we have going right now. We got Dricus du Plessis facing off against Israel Adesanya for the championship. I am personally a huge Izzy fan for my fight fans out there. Dricus is an absolute dog, though. He only has 2 losses at the pro level that we've seen in UFC and MMA. Izzy is coming off of a loss. He hasn't fought in over a year pretty much, but he looks driven. There's a lot of emotion behind this, so that's going to be a real coin flip for a lot of you guys. When you look at frame, Dricus is the guy that looks like he is the more balanced and comfortable fighter heading into this fight, but Israel not only has the championship pedigree the way he was for multiple years in the UFC, but also has pretty much seen everything thrown at him right now at the UFC, MMA, and even kickboxing level, going back to his previous times when he was facing Alex Potan Paeta that we saw prior to either of them being in the UFC. So biasly, I love Izzy tonight, but non-biasly, I think it's absolutely a coin flip if you guys want to hammer Dricus. Either way, I think this is going to be a dogfight. I don't foresee this to end in the first 2 rounds. I think that this at least goes championship rounds and we find ourselves a winner in the 4th or 5th round. 5th round could have it going by decision. We'll see what happens. Again, it's a coin flip for sure, but if you guys like to get in on UFC action as well, highly implore you all to check out what we're doing here with BetUS. Alex Soto, thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate that. Soto says the following: Sevy straight big dog today. Yes, baby. We needed him to motivate the rest of the staff. Just like you, Wardy, straight big dog on your platform. Great work. Oh, I appreciate that a lot. Compliment of the day, Alex. You're making me all rosy-cheeked out here. Really appreciate that. Wishing you well. Thank you so much for the donation. Shout out to Alex Soto in the chat for the $5 holla. And yes, it was a big dog outing for Mr. Big Dog himself, and Luis Severino. Right back at you, Alex. Hope it's a great one. Let's see, folks. Now, as we continue to get into this one, let's now pivot to the pitching, because let's look at the arsenal a bit here, and we're going to break it down through Baseball Savant. Don't worry, everybody. If you want a more in-depth pitching report on Mr. Luis Severino, make sure you guys are following my socials at the WardyNYM. We're right around 64,000 strong on Twitter X. It's separate from my personal account, which is just WardyNYM. You can follow both, go ahead, but on the WardyNYM is where I will be posting weekly threads on key pitching performances, prospect reports, among others, with my daily contributor and Isaac Rothman. Isaac is cooking up an awesome thread on Sevy as we speak right now, so be on the lookout. That will be posted at some point today. If not, absolutely it's tomorrow, but we're going to aim for it today, absolutely. So that's lace there on Sevy, folks. But now let's talk about Luis Severino, and let's get into his arsenal. And what's that so much about this over 110 pitch complete game shutout outing for the veteran right-hander in his first and potentially only year with the Mets. Another question for each and every one of you. Do you want to see Luis Severino back in Queens beyond the 2024 season? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the live show. My replay viewers, same applies in the comments as always. Four-seam fastball for Sevy today was 39% of the arsenal. Topped out roughly 99 if we're rounding, 98.6 at 104th pitch of the game. Sat right around 96, dead on with his year average. Cutter 19% of the arsenal, topped out 94, sat 92. All the velo was slightly down outside of fastball, but ever so slight, nothing concerning at all. Sinker 19% of the arsenal, topped out 98 rounding, 95 was the average. Sweeper 16% of the arsenal, topped out 87, sat 85. Slider just 4% of the arsenal today, topped out 89, sat 86. And we saw the changeup 3% of the arsenal, topped out 87, sat 86. And the sweeper at 16% of the arsenal, in case I didn't mention that already. If I did, I apologize. Topped out 87, sat 85. I think I did. But brilliant work that we saw there by Sevy, and a good mix and array of the swing and miss that he had from his pitches. He had a 33% whiff rate on his four seam, a 33% whiff rate on the cutter, and a 33% whiff rate on that sweeper. Got no swing and miss, no whiffs whatsoever on that sinker, but that's fine because somehow, some way, we have seen some swing and miss with Sean Manaea working that sinker up in the zone this year. But in the case of Severino, who's clearly going to work it low in the zone to induce those ground ball outs, that is exactly what he did in this matchup today, along with some brilliant defense that we saw again from highlight reel defensive plays, whether it's Brandon Nimmo in the left corner, Harrison Bader making a nice diving stop there in center field, beautiful turns on the double play from the Mets infield, and Mr. Mark Vientos out the hot corner, charging some bunt singles and getting the throw to first. That is what we love to see. An all-round effort of a complete game shutout is another thing that I really want to have a point of emphasis with when breaking this down. This was not one of those outings where it's like, okay, Sevy was great, but the defense wasn't out to bail him. It was the complete opposite. Everyone had their fingers on this victory for the Mets, and that is exactly what you want to see as a Mets fan, as they're in dire need of consistent series victories, especially before they kick off a ridiculous 10-game stretch for the most part, beginning against the Orioles. Then you got San Diego and the D-backs on the road. I mean, we just have to all hope and pray that this Mets team can stay afloat and stay at least 500, if not better, throughout that stretch, which could easily make or break their season, depending on how good or bad it ends up going. But as we continue to break this one down, everybody, Severino, brilliant stuff. I mean, what else needs to be said on him? I got to say, I had chills seeing Severino do what he did today. This was one of those outings from Sevy that absolutely had me juiced up, ready to run through a brick wall like never before. And Severino is one of those guys that's been very easy to rally around early this season, with him not only understanding what it means to be a Met, understanding the market, and knowing what it means to be a New York Metropolitan in New York, as a New Yorker that he essentially is himself here. Sevy has lived in New York for his entire pro career with the Yankees. He didn't want to leave, which helped the Mets, especially having Carlos Mendoza, the former Yanks bench boss, Harrison Bader, and all these other former Yanks in the current Mets organization that helped them obviously pry him away from potentially going somewhere else. And this has been a win-win scenario like I think anyone could have ever imagined heading into the season. If you would have said heading either that Luis Severino would have a sub-4 ERA and have his latest start deep into August being a complete game shutout, I don't think anyone is scoffing or complaining whatsoever. They're pretty happy with that turnout. So Luis Severino, thank you so much again for a masterful outing, and shout out to the Mets for having this be a complete team effort, something that we haven't seen all that much at times this season, with the balance from the pitching to the offense. So to see things in unison is chef's kiss. Need I say more? Now let's get into the hitting, everybody, because on the hitting end, we saw some awesome stuff today as well. Nothing as glaring and as notable as Severino's complete game shutout, but still something to make note of here as Francisco Lindor continues his ridiculous pace right now. A 2-for-3 game with 2 runs scored and his leadoff home run on the day. A 265 average and an 810 OPS. Yes, Francisco Lindor is directly in line to have himself as a 270-plus hitter before you know it. Who would have thought that earlier this season? For all the schmucks that said that Mr. Lindor would lead the Mets to nowhere, farthest thing from the truth. It's almost like we should buy into large sample sizes and not small sample size. Color me shocked. Mark Vientos 2-for-4 with a double and an RBI, continuing his great offensive play and solid defensive play that we saw at the hot corner in this one. A 279 average and an 898 OPS as one of quite literally the best hitting third baseman in all Major League Baseball. Not just the National League. Yes, Vientos is right up there with Rafael Devers as the highest OPSs among eligible third basemen this season. He has been that good. Brandon Nimmo 1-for-4 thanks to the RBI triple. Or pardon me, it wasn't an RBI. I don't know why I said earlier that it was. I think I just had it messed up in my notes. No less, Nimmo that we saw with the triple, 1-for-4 on the day with a run scored, a 228 average and a 750 OPS. Did strike out twice, so something to make note of, as Nimmo is still swinging and missing at an alarming rate that we've seen post All-Star break, but nice to see him get the triple the way he did it after a big 3-run home run game yesterday. JD Martinez over 3 today, including a walk, a 257 average, and a 778 OPS. Pete Alonso, his solo shot, his 27th home run of the year, his 100th at Citi Field, 1 for 4 with a run scored, and a 243 average, a 799 OPS for the Mets power hitter. Jesse Winker, 1 for 3, batting 6th today, and an RBI, a 261 average, and a 776 OPS. Tyrone Taylor, 0 for 1, coming in as a late defensive replacement, a 240 average, and a 686 OPS on the year. Francisco El Troll Alvarez, after having a solid day at the plate yesterday, Alvy 0 for 4 today with a pair of strikeouts, a 252 average, and a 712 OPS. Jeff McNeil, no bombs or no doubles today, but that's okay, Jeff, because he got on base twice with some walks, a 238 average, and a just under 700 OPS, 692 to be exact. And Harrison Bader, who was 0 for 2 today, a 262 average and a 698 OPS. Awesome stuff from the Mets all around today, and not overly flashy win. And their 228 expected batting average showed you that this was not a favorable game for the offense, but they did what they needed to do. The defense stood out big time, and this was one of those games that really felt exactly like what David Stearns has been trying to preach all year long. Let me know how you guys feel about this, if you agree or disagree, but this outing is exactly
America's
what
favorite.
David Stearns prides himself on. Apologies for the BetUS ad running there for a second. I did not mean for that to be the case, but this was one of those outings where for David Stearns, who preached heading into the Mets season that this Mets team is going to pride themselves on strong defense, quality pitching, and those going directly hand with each other, something that we haven't seen consistently all that much this year, and making sure you're not walking the ballpark. Walking the ballpark has been relevant every single day for the Mets for the most part, and so has been their lack of consistency on the defensive end. Post All-Star break, post trade deadline, however, Mets have been pretty superior on the defensive end if you exclude Mark Vientos' hiccups that we saw there in Anaheim against the Angels, where the Mets somehow dropped 2 out of 3 there. This is a Mets team, though, defensively, pitching-wise, this was that kind of balance that you'd expect to see from the Mets initially heading into the season, led by David Stearns, saying where you really have a point of emphasis on the defense, that's going to help prevent the runs, and we're going to keep those runners from getting on the base paths via walks. This was as balanced of a win as you could possibly hope for. That is what we love to see. Did we do the post-game, Rebecca? Yes, we did do the post-game jingle already, and sadly, you did miss it. I apologize, but I'm happy to have you in here no less, and I greatly appreciate that. What do we have here in the chat? I appreciate the defense heat. I don't know if anyone said that. If they did, that's perfectly fine, though. We'll get through this. Let's see in the chat, though, going up just a second here. Today was a special win. I tend to agree with you, Jason. This is a type of win to really help rally the Mets around and hopefully find consistency. Try to secure that series sweep tomorrow. I mean, there's no reason not to. This is a depleted Miami Marlins team with Jesus Sanchez, your highest paid player right now. Take advantage of the opponent you're facing. Finally, please stop playing down to these guys as well. My goodness, my God, my gracious. I'm loving the Mets finally getting on a roll here, but I'm not buying in saying, okay, this is what we should believe when they play good teams. I want to see them prove it the way that they have plenty of times this season. Let's see more of that. Luis Severino, a balanced victory for the Mets is definitely something that I'm going to be smiling about as I head out of this one, everybody. And before I head out, I'm going to double check real quick to make sure that we don't have any key notes on the prospect report to get into or anything like that where the Syracuse Mets or anyone else, because I don't know the current statuses of today's games. I will double check for each and every one of you before we get out of here with our latest New York Metropolitan postgame segment presented by BetUS. Syracuse Mets are up 1-0 in the top of the 4th. All the other games, though, are kind of halfway through right now, so I'm not even going to bother to dabble with them at the moment. Man, does it pain me to see Mr. Joey Votto having a 500 OPS going 0 for 3 right now in the top of the 7th for the Buffalo Bisons for Toronto in a separate game against Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. Hate to see that. I love Joey Votto. I don't know about you guys. One of the best first basemen that I've seen throughout my lifetime as a baseball fan, and a guy that doesn't get nearly appreciated enough, even though he has a great support group. We all know that. Let's see here, though. Go to rain tomorrow, Mets fans. Yeah, we'll see how the weather looks tomorrow for sure, folks. Absolutely. But you know what? Before I let you all out of here, I will leave you with this, as I have done in the past because you've asked for it so much. And for my audio listeners, I hope you enjoy this too. Shout out BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Check them out for all your sports betting needs once more by clicking that link down below in the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000, especially with their UFC slates. I highly implore you all to check them out as well. Urseg is another big fight as well. That's a part of the co-main in this one. Excited to see how that matches up. But let's let it rip once more with the WardyNYM post-game jingle as a send-off and as a thank you to everyone for chiming into the latest Mets post-game segment.